All right. And my first guest for this episode is Bobby Jacobs from Thread. Now, this is exciting because they are this is 2023, last year's winners of the PitchIT competition. So, Bobby, how you doing?
Doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me here. It's yeah, always fun to connect. Love the work you do. So yeah, fun to be here.
I appreciate that. And, loved your guys' booth at IT Nation. I thought that was great. Loved how much you guys really get into it with, the costumes and stuff like that. I thought that was really, kind of goes to show the enthusiasm that Thread has for this industry. And I think it's that enthusiasm that kind of came through in your pitch. And I think probably had something to do with you guys winning that competition.
Yeah, it's a great competition. Pitch It is awesome. It's great of ConnectWise to put it on and get a bunch of vendors out there that people might not know. Um, if you're doing something awesome and you're not enthusiastic about it, I think that's not awesome, right?
Yeah.
It probably raises some red flags. Now, being radical is a core value of ours, so maybe we go a bit over just enthusiasm, and we do that on purpose. We want to be radical with our product, with our partners, with the way that we are in public and at conferences, and so yeah, we like to wear costumes. That's a part of that.
And as a guy who has personally dressed up for trade shows as, I don't know, George Washington, a cowboy riding a horse, a pirate, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that's all. It's fun to be in person. People treat you a little differently. We were at an all inclusive at NerdioCon last week, which was awesome. And my wife was not getting the same level of service that we were in our pirate costumes. The pirate costumes got a little better service.
Yep, for sure. Which is surprising because in the islands, pirates were a real thing.
Yeah.
So let's start out with what is Thread so that the people who don't know about it, kind of get an idea of what we're talking about before we get started on the pitch it stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. At Thread, we help MSPs create magical experiences. We hate tickets. We think they're a terrible way to treat people. They're not meant for communication. Tickets are good for billing, they're good for time entries and logging information. That's kind of it. No one wants to be told to take a number. No one wants to have to grab a ticket or pass a ticket around or take a ticket. They just feel bad. And so, we help MSPs meet their customers where they live. A big part of that is integrated chat support. So, if you ask most MSPs, do you chat with your customers today? They're going to be like, I'm not really supposed to, but I do in Teams and it doesn't follow process, but like it's worth it. But ultimately, they're sacrificing process for customer experience. And in the long run, if you're sacrificing process, you're going to sacrifice customer experience because that's going to catch up with you down the road. And so at Thread, we help MSPs follow their process while providing great customer experience. Essentially, the end customer can chat from Teams or Slack. It opens a ticket in the PSA or it logs on an existing ticket. Massive decrease in time to resolution, huge increase in customer satisfaction. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And, we've always been told that it's always better to meet the customer where they're at than force the customer to go to a portal or something like that. So it seems like this is a pretty logical idea.
Yeah, it's if you're telling someone to do that, but again, you're not following process, you're setting them up for failure. And there's a lot of really great consultants in this space that help MSPs learn how to run a great business. And I think that they would probably agree, meet the customer where they are, but in reality, they're not helping them do that. They're helping them follow process. And so it's really the end user who pays the price because they have to pick up the phone and probably pay a premium for that or send an email. And then you're getting bombarded with just a ton of emails on the ticket, like status is updated, there's a new comment on it, and then you miss the important stuff. And so, yeah, it's important to meet the customer where they are, but if you're not doing it the right way, it's going to be painful for everybody.
Yeah. Well, to me, and this is why I think, when we first met at IT Nation this past year, I felt like you guys were kindred spirits because I care a lot about customer experience, right?
Hmm.
I call it client experience because we're in this space and it's really
Yeah,
clients and not customers.
yeah.
But creating that experience is one of the best ways for one IT service provider to distinguish themselves from another, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you see people doing it in a lot of different ways. Talk one of my our favorite partners, we call MSPs partners and their customers because it's hard to differentiate. Sugar Shot is a really cool MSP, and they talk a lot about like they have this sugar branding and creating these great experiences. And before Thread, I think it was challenging for them to meet the customers where they lived. And so, it was about this great experience, like making things feel really great. But it was all in context of the ticket, and they were just butting their heads against the wall. It was frustrating for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, it sounds like you guys are really filling a niche that a lot of other people haven't yet. And first one to market is always the one who does the best.
Or the first one to die, right? You don't want to be bleeding edge too much where you spend all your money telling everyone what the problem is and then someone else comes and fixes it. So, I go a long time on that, but I think it's healthy to run, or it's important to run a healthy company, and that's one of the things that we learned in PitchIT. There's a lot of really great mentors and sessions, and that talk about like you the economics of it and how to
Yeah.
run a healthy business.
So let's switch the conversation to pitch it. What is the why behind, you guys submitting an application and getting started with the pitch it program last year?
Yeah, well, we really respect ConnectWise. They're an incredible company and do a lot of things for the space. And PitchIt is a great example. Like they don't get anything specifically out of PitchIt. They put up over 100 grand in prize money and have full-time staff helping coordinate this program. And a lot of it is about helping early stage software vendors provide products to MSPs that are needed, which is great. And so, for any software startup in the space or early stage company, joining PitchIt teaches you about MSPs. If you don't know, first and foremost, that's a great way to learn. Most people in the space come from an MSP, right? So, um, ConnectWise does some great things there, but more so, it's the connections, like connecting you with I don't know, I guess 16 plus experts in the space who come in and do sessions over the course of 4 months. It's called Pitch It, and it ends with pitches where you win a prize. But
Right.
really, it's more of like a startup accelerator where
Yeah.
we have these mentors coming in and teaching us about like how to run your LinkedIn, how to think about funding, how to run a product team. And so we're really able to plug and play different people from our team into the program to learn from experts. And so when we think about like why ConnectWise is doing this, it's really to benefit the MSP. Like if they're able to work with better vendors and have more um, products coming to the space, they're going to help them solve problems that are vetted and doing things the right way and aren't going to go out of business and are going to be less buggy and all that type of stuff. I think it makes a big impact.
Yeah, and I really like the attitude that ConnectWise has taken towards it in really trying to create a win-win for everybody. It's really a win-win-win-win because there's
Yeah.
so many more people involved with this than just ConnectWise and just the startup vendors. ConnectWise is doing this for the whole community as well. A lot of people that I've talked to have really related this to more of, like you said, a startup accelerator or a startup incubator, those kinds of things, where they're bringing in the experts, they're bringing in those cameo coaches that are not just mentors, that are trying to mentor you through a whole process. They bring in very specific topic related
Hmm.
coaches to go through not just how to pitch, not just how to do marketing, but how to do so many other things. And it's really kind of it because it includes those things. It is that accelerator type of environment. So, what did you guys do to get kind of prepared for that jump start and what looks to be like quite a bit of work over those 16 weeks?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just committing to attend all the sessions. When you're running a company like an MSP is, or like a small software company is, there's 1,000 things pulling at you. So to choose to work on the business and not just in the business, every time you join one of those calls, you're sacrificing something else, right? Like I could be on a meeting with my team or a partner or something, and it's super worth it, which is why, we join and ConnectWise makes it so. Um, but the first thing is just preparing ourselves to be able to join all this call. Like if I'm talking to a vendor who's about to start, I would say like, hey, just make sure someone from your team is on every call taking notes, because once you start to miss a few, it's probably easy to miss more, and then all of a sudden like you're just building your company on your own without all these experts helping you. So I think that was the first thing, and there's a humbleness that comes with it too. Like you have to be somewhat prideful to start your own company, and think you know how to build something that the world's going to benefit from. Um, and so to say like, hey, I'm going to take advice, I'm going to change things, I'm going to openly share. Right? There's like 26 plus other vendors on the call, and so to ask questions and say like, hey, this is something we're struggling with. Um, when you do that and you start to collaborate with the other startups too, like someone may say like, hey, I actually just interviewed someone and I couldn't hire them, but that I have like the person that you need for that. Or this is how we've approached our conference spend this year. There's a lot of things like that that the community, and there's a Teams channel that we're all in, and that's another huge benefit, is just being able to collaborate with the other vendors.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because I'm hearing that from a lot of the other participants as well, that yes, it's a competition and there's the competitive aspects to it, but because it's also this incubator accelerator type of environment, that there is a lot of collaboration and cross pollination, that it almost makes it valuable in and of itself just for that aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's even competitors in it. Like Chat Style was in PitchIT this year, who has some overlap with us. But really, we learned going through the program that we really focus on different ideal customer profile. Like we work with different MSPs than Chat Style does, and throughout the program, we actually passed a few MSPs back and forth who would be a better fit for one product or the other. Um, going into it, I think we were both a little nervous, like, hey, this may be a little too close for comfort, and we came out of it collaborating way more. And I think we saw a lot of people in the space do that.
Yeah, and speaking of being nervous, I saw you guys deliver your final pitch at IT Nation. Extremely well done. You nailed it, which of course is why you won. But how was that first one?
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, there's a couple of rounds. A really interesting round was I guess the first round of like official pitches, where you're pitching to 7 VPs of ConnectWise, and they're deciding who's in the finals. Um, that was way scarier to me than being on stage is a little different. Like that one was over Zoom, but our ConnectWise relationship is really important to us, and there may have been people on that call that we were pitching to that didn't even really know what Thread did, right? Like we're in their invent program, we do a lot of great things with ConnectWise, but to be pitching directly to all of their VPs of all departments, there's a lot on the line. Like whether we won or we didn't, there's a lot of benefit we could get out of that. So that was big. And again, like props to ConnectWise to getting all of their leadership to be involved in PitchIT and listen to these 26 startups. Like that just accelerates a lot of conversations, a lot of relationships and opportunities. Because for us, we could probably reach out and get meetings with all of those people individually, but we don't have time to, right? Like we're busy working with our partners, and we don't want to hire a ton of people to just go do those types of things. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's what you were getting at with that question, but that
Yeah.
was a really cool part of the program, was getting to pitch to all those people.
Well, and it's something, by the way, that actual pitch, the pitch to the VPs or GMs of ConnectWise, has come up more than once as kind of I'll say, the most intimidating.
Yeah.
And I can see why, obviously, because these are people who are successful in our space, right?
Mhm.
And I think it does show ConnectWise's commitment to this process as well, that they take the time of all those people to listen to the pitches of 26 plus competitors in the PitchIT program. So I
Yeah,
think it's great that there's commitment from both sides, right? You have the all the work that has to be done on your side, all the work that has to be done on ConnectWise's side, and then all of the coaches and judges that come in and help with this. So it really is it's a community thing, and I think the community gets out of it the because there is we're a little bit different in this channel, right? This
for sure.
ecosystem is not the same as your typical, even your typical channel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's some things that are tolerated, some things that are not tolerated, and I know that for vendors who have not been MSPs in the past, who are not connected to this channel, come in and learn about those things and become a much more effective member of the community by
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about if there's this really great product that has been for internal IT or something, and they want to work with MSPs, and they're something as simple as their pricing isn't set up in a way that MSPs can use it. That's going to fall, that burden's going to fall on MSPs, right? They're going to have to spend time with that vendor and help them learn and maybe even consume a pricing model that is not helpful to them. And over time, that vendor probably will change their pricing into something more channel specific. But if they can go into PitchIt and be like, oh, wow, 25 of these vendors have a similar pricing model, and ConnectWise is telling me that I need to have a channel focused pricing model, they're probably just going to change it, and then that's a lot less friction for the actual MSPs, right? They can just
Yeah.
consume it, assuming it's a good product, and everyone saves time.
Yep. So going back and talking about Pitch It, what was kind of I guess, probably one of the most difficult things that you found out while you were going through the Pitch It program?
Hmm. Yeah, we certainly were not great about talking about our product and the problem we solve. It's really hard to figure out, like, how do you talk about the problem that you're solving? How do you think about your solution and the vision that you have behind it? We talk about service magic, we talk about killing tickets, but if all I do is talk about those things, someone's going to be like, "What do you actually do? Like, what is your product?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's integrated chat." Like, that's kind of the short of it, right? If I want to cut to the point, I can say it's integrated chat. And figuring out like how to talk about what and when, and we're still figuring that out. Like at NerdioCon, we were learning like we say these words at this time, and if we're at a bar, we probably say it this way. If we're at our booth, maybe we say it this way because we have a little more time. Um, but man, it was bad. We did 30-second pitches and like internal competitions and on some webinars throughout the program, and we lost everyone. Like it's pretty funny that we ended up winning Pitch It because every contest that we did in Pitch It, we lost going through the program. Um, Luckily, we had 5 minutes. I think we were especially bad at the 30-second ones. Um, but we'd get to the end of 30 seconds and we'd be like, oh, and also we do a bunch of AI stuff and like it's really cool. And then the time just stops and it's like, all right, I have no clue what's happening. Um, so I think that's a lot of it is like, when do you use different terminology? When do you go big picture? When do you talk about the problem and the solution? That stuff's hard.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it's, you like you said before, you kind of have to know your ideal customer profile or your ideal partner profile in this case, to be able to really rein that in and get that laser focus that produces results. Now, speaking of results, I know a lot of people have said that Pitch It was really good for their visibility. And I think you've kind of alluded to that in our conversation as well. But what other kinds of growth and opportunity has Pitch It enabled Thread to do?
Sure. Our relationship with ConnectWise, they're, one of the biggest companies in the industry. And to use our product specifically, the MSP has to use ConnectWise or Autotask. So most MSPs that we work with are using one of those two. A lot are using ConnectWise. So that relationship's really important to us. And so to have the relationship with, Sean and Andrea and the whole Pitch It team specifically, but then their conferences and, Evolve and product and across the board. I mentioned we're in the Invent programs. There's a lot going on. If MSPs don't know about Invent, uh, vendors who are in Invent have gone through a code review and they have gone through a security review with ConnectWise, and it means that they've basically been vetted to be secure vendors to work with. And so there's a lot of things like that that have just helped us become more legitimate to work with ConnectWise partners and to get in front of them. Like if we can get in front of MSPs more affordably, means that we can build a better product and charge less for it, right? And
Yeah.
so to be able to, we did win 70 plus $1,000, so that helps a lot of being able to get in front of more MSPs and build more awesome product. But even the ways where we don't have to spend money to do that, like being on webinars like this and getting support from their team, really marketing and sales are some of the most expensive things that early stage vendors get involved in. So that's been a huge lift.
So if you had to kind of talk to a pitch at 2024, maybe somebody who they haven't applied yet, they're thinking about applying, what would you tell them uh, in terms of whether they should or whether they shouldn't, or what they should expect applying for the pitch at 2024?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would say just do it. Like if you're a vendor working with MSPs that's somewhat early stage, we'd been around a little bit, but we started as more of a side project out of an MSP. So we hadn't been like really going to market and doing stuff as a funded company for very long when we joined. But I'd say if you're earliest stage and you're working with MSPs, you should do it. There's no better way to get connections in the space quickly. The cohort of other vendors that you work with, the people that you get access to. Yeah, I mean, it's called an accelerator for a reason. You get accelerated.
Yeah. And you mentioned, like, leading up to it, you guys had lost all of your pitches, but obviously you were doing something right to get into the final three. What do you think you did right to get into that final three?
Yeah, one, we have a full-time designer on our team. So our slide deck, I think, looked pretty good because our team is pretty good at design. So that helps. But I think putting in the work, figuring out the messaging. Part of the reason we lost on those pitches is because we were playing around with different messaging. And we're trying to figure out what worked, and there were no real stakes at those ones that we lost. So I think really figuring out what that messaging was, and I think being able to articulate the pain really well. And the probably a few days before the actual pitch, my first slide was like, how big is the market? Kind of typical VC slide where you're raising funding and saying that it's the biggest industry in the world. And if we can just capture this piece of it, and everyone's using Microsoft Teams, so this industry is exploding. Um, and the slide was pretty cool, but I think it was like, okay, I get it. It's normal. And then we changed that slide to a video of a guy like slamming his keyboard and crying. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy hates his life. It's terrible to work with MSPs today. Then like switching to that pain. Um, I think like making people feel something and relate to what's happening. That was something that the program helped us do. Like Sean and team were like, hey, this is a pretty boring pitch. Like it's compelling. Everything in here is good, but I don't really feel anything. Um, and that transition, I don't know if that's like why we won, but that was a big change we made that I think was impactful.
Yeah. So you hit them in the feels.
Exactly. That's right. And
Great.
something people can relate to,
Right.
if
Exactly.
yeah, it was good.
So what's next for Thread?
Yeah, helping more MSPs experience service magic. We have had a lot of really fun releases. We were at IT Nation. We were dressed up as pilots because we are doing a lot with AI. We're continuing to have more releases there. But really, we think about how can we help technicians and how can we help dispatchers. We want to make their lives way, way better. We're doing a lot on the dispatch side. Today, we're automatically categorizing tickets, setting type, subtype, and item, prioritizing tickets. Our AI is over 90% accurate doing those things in platform. And so there's more coming there. You think about helping that dispatcher know who's available, who they should assign tickets to, and then, being able to repurpose that person to go do more valuable work that's not just repetitive. At NerdioCon, I talked about dispatch more than I ever have. Like it seemed to be very top of people's minds. I think that they see that it's a role that can be repurposed and that there's, with AI, there's more opportunities there. Um, so that's definitely an area that we're doubling down on.
Yeah, it really does seem like people are very eager to apply AI to the dispatch role because you can get that ticket. I'm sorry, I used that dirty word.
Kill
You
it.
can move that ticket further along through
Yeah.
dispatch so it's to a better point before the technician gets their hands on it.
Yeah. And even training dispatch, like with our categorization, it tells the dispatcher why it set it to the category it did. So now that person's being up leveled and can go into something else.
Yeah, so it's actually almost like a collaboration between the person, the dispatcher, and the AI. That seems
That's
really
right.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking, Eric. A lot of fun stuff coming.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing your insights in the Pitch It program, and I wish you guys all the best in everything that you're doing with Thread.
Thanks. Yeah. Same to yourself, Eric. Appreciate everything you do for this community and having us on today.
Thank you. All right. So, my next guest on the Winner's Journey episode for Pitch It, I am talking to Gene Rich from Traceless. Now, Gene and Traceless won the Pitch It competition 3 years ago now. So, it's been a little bit. So,
Yep.
we're going to talk a little bit about, what your thought was getting into Pitch It, but then, we'll give you a chance to talk about what Traceless is doing today as well. So, first of all, probably just introduce yourself, talk about Traceless. What is it? And then kind of what inspired you to enter into the Pitch It program?
Yeah. So, Eric, it's nice being back. Thanks for having me. Always happy to talk about Pitch It. It was a meaningful part of our history at Traceless. And, Traceless was really spun out of me figuring out that I had some vulnerabilities in my MSP, mainly around how do you know who's calling your help desk and how do you send and receive sensitive information without letting something of that matter sit at rest to be found by attackers. And they seem like pretty novel solutions, but I just couldn't find something to fill my need. And so I called Peter, who's my co-founder, and Traceless was born. And as we started getting out of kind of like beta and starting to accept paid customers, the you just have to be scrappy as a startup. And I had forgotten, like this was year 15 in my MSP. So I forgot what the grind was like. And
Yeah.
being a ConnectWise partner on the MSP side really exposed me to ConnectWise's programs. And, I think there was like a scale of PitchIt's notoriety that started building the year that we won. And I think that was large in part of ConnectWise really being like, oh, this is something that we should really put some more resource into. And so why not, right? So we had decided to sponsor IT Nation that year, and we're like, let's do this Pitch It program. And we were very fortunate enough to win. There were some other really good products that were in the top three. Shout out to all those people. Yeah, and it was really good, and the program's really evolved since then. So it's been exciting to see how it's changed and really like become one of the leading, if not the only, kind of like incubator accelerator in our MSP space.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people have described it as, is an incubator or a rapid accelerator, because it's a very short time frame. And so there is a commitment to it as well.
Hmm.
What was that commitment like for you and Traceless?
So, the year before, I think it was TimeZest that won, and there wasn't much commitment. It's like, hey, even the stage was kind of off the side. It wasn't terribly publicized. And I think after that, they really wanted to formalize it for a few reasons. One is, to get a presentation that's meaningful to the community is effort. So a lot of very great products um, don't equal a great presentation on stage in public. It's like a very different skill set. It's a different kind of thing, being a startup and having a good product or having a product and then being like good at pitching that product, right? So I think that that was one of the big changes going into the year that we were a part of it, is really kind of breaking down some fundamental processes to help the business understand, what's your value proposition, what's your TAM, where you're going, how do you present, and kind of giving that rehearsal of presenting. Because the other thing is, as a founder, you're so passionate about the product that you might just get on stage and say, "Oh, we're so cool and it's so great," but that doesn't maybe have any gravity to an investor or
Right.
a community of like, well, that doesn't really translate to how I can use this in my MSP. It's a great idea, but like
Yeah.
maybe it's not that. So there was a lot more time and energy kind of building the framework of the program to participate. And I think they also tried a lot harder to raise awareness, right? So everyone should apply, starting to use social media. And then the year after we won, when Sean took it over, it kind of went up to the next level of
Right.
resource, the next level of kind of getting the word out about PitchIT, making noise, supporting it, and it's growing. It's really cool. It's really cool to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it continues to grow. And one of the things that I like about it now, of course, this would not be a problem that you had because obviously you came from an MSP, and many vendors do because an
Yeah.
MSP sees a problem, they solve the problem, then they go to market with the solution for that problem. But there are still a lot of vendors who don't know this market, don't know how to interact with MSPs. And so I think it does a really good job of helping those vendors who haven't had experience in the MSP world to bring a product into, this little ecosystem that we all love. But we tend to be a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's fascinating. In our experience since and speaking to VCs and working on fundraising, it's really divided, right? You have a pitch to somebody and they're like, "Look, you're thinking that MSPs are going to sell your product," and they're like, "That's a horrible idea. MSPs are horrible salespeople, right?" And then you talk to another one that's like, "Well, why didn't you mention your ability to sell on the channel? That's like the secret sauce we're looking for,"
Yep.
right? And I think vendors are the same, right? So it's like unrealized understanding of the opportunity and how to enable that opportunity in the business model that we have. It's a big industry, big,
Yeah. And
big, big opportunity.
well, to me, one of the reasons why I think that it's so big and has so much potential and so much um, resilience is because we're dealing with a very large market that continues to grow, but every individual piece of that market is rather small because we're talking about small to medium sized businesses, whether you're talking about most MSPs or their customers, right?
Hmm.
And it's a completely different mindset that you have to have, but it's in a true growth, type of cycle. So going back to Pitch It for a minute, I know that there's a lot of great mentorship and coaching that happens during Pitch It. What was that like in the year that you won?
I think that the year we won, it was not as time intensive from like a commit perspective. The curriculum was being developed, right? So there was kind of like they brought in some content, some useful thought exercises. I think there was a lot of resource and focus on how to do your pitch and really kind of getting us to understand that the pitch has to be within a time frame and you need to make sure you cover all these items. And um, so that was a lot of what I recall from that period of time. I think the
Okay.
commitments are more now, but I think they're also more useful for
Right.
the people participating. Because honestly, like I think that, like I said, it's so hard owning a business and it's really
Yeah.
hard starting one. So like, all the MSPs out there, great work, just acknowledging you're in a very small percentile. It doesn't feel that way. It's hard every day. Keep working, keep going, right? But, you know, I think some people who go through the Pitch It program have the luxury of maybe understanding that this idea they had is not actually palatable for a business, right?
Right.
And I think that that's also like extremely useful because it can prevent people from spending time maybe that's not warranted, or it might cause them to pivot in their product, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Maybe this isn't, but I think I've got something else, right? And that's the that's the deal as an entrepreneur is you have to be open to learning constantly. And there's a lot of info to receive now with the program, which is really great.
And I think that's one of the things that the coaching really brings to it now
Hmm.
is helping them to identify whether or not they need to pivot. Um, but I want to go back to your because it started out as doing pitches, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know this it because it's 3 years ago. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be asking you to reach back there a little bit. What what was the main difference between maybe your first pitch or an early pitch and then that final pitch that actually uh, brought home the win?
It's a good question. Um, I think the length of the proposal or the length of the pitch, really trying to, there's always this big focus, right? And give me your 15-second elevator pitch, right? That's a very useful but difficult exercise
Yeah,
for somebody to distill their value proposition in a few sentences. And I think that the pitch was basically that, right? How do you get there? And like a lot of the um, early excitement in my career at Traceless, it's like, here's a product, and let me show you all these things it does, right? And it's like, okay, that's great, but maybe somebody doesn't understand the tactical level, right? So it's like, okay, bring it up, bring it up one more level. Like, why is this important for MSPs? Why is it important for the industry? What's the opportunity for outside of MSPs potentially? And I think that those types of questions and focus were very useful for us um, to bring it home. It was also great. Peter, who's my co-founder, he was part of the pitch as well. So I think it was really fun for me to be on stage with him and have, both of us talk about different areas. Obviously, he talked about the product more, and I talked about the business side, the TAM, the
right.
opportunity, what we're bringing to the ecosystem. And I thought that that was also really, I mean, I remember we just went over it over and over and over and over and over, right?
Yeah,
It was
practice
good.
makes perfect.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, whenever I go into the Pitch It contest every year at IT Nation, I kind of like get nervous, like I have to tell myself, no, you don't have to worry. You're not going to have to go on stage. It's not, you already won. You don't have to come here and like be nervous. But I understand how nerve wracking it is, even if you're good at presenting, to compete and to be on the public
Yeah.
eye and, to be judged publicly. And, it's like all that goes into the moment, right? Which is a little
Yep.
different than the prep for the moment. So
So, if you had one piece of advice for somebody who's thinking about applying for the Pitch It program, what would it be?
do it.
Easy enough. Just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the being tenacious and thoughtful about doors that open to you, I think create the difference between success and just kind of getting by. And you don't have to know if this is the right thing for you, but if you have a product in the space that you believe in or an idea, there's nothing like applying and trying, right?
Yep. Well, Gene, thank you very much for,
Sure.
doing this because what we're trying to do is we're really trying to help these people who are maybe on the fence about whether or not they should do pitch it hear from some of the winners like yourself so that they
Hmm.
can make that decision and move forward so that we can have another exciting year at pitch it.
Yeah, I think it's grown every year. It's been super exciting, and um, yeah, I just think it's a great opportunity for people to also get their brand out there and to meet people. That's the last thing I'll say is that it's kind of like camp. You go to camp with a bunch of people and you spend a week together intensely, and you come out of that. And every time I see somebody at a conference, I'm like, hey, there's a different connection than I have as a vendor to another vendor. And I think that community is strong. And, this allows you to just get in deeper into
Yep.
the community, which is so important in the space that we work in.
Awesome. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing, Gene. And I'm sure
Sure.
that I'll see you on some other pitch at something this year.
Great.
All right. And my next guest today is Cam Srikanth from AlertOps. Now, AlertOps won the award, the PitchIT award, what? I think it was 2 years ago, Cam, if I'm correct.
Yep, we won in 2022.
Awesome. So my memory is not failing me as bad as I thought it was. Um,
Nope.
so give me a little 2-minute pitch, elevator pitch, if you will, of what AlertOps is and what it does for the MSP.
Absolutely. So AlertOps essentially exists as the last line of communication between humans and technology, right? Your service desk. We ensure that from a variety of different sources, PSAs, various monitoring tools, RMM, application monitoring, database monitoring tools, are filtered through AlertOps, and we get the right person, the right message at the right time.
So I assume that because of that, it integrates with a lot of the MSP's existing tools.
Yes, absolutely. So PSA and RMM, as I'd mentioned, in the spirit of PitchIT, obviously we integrate with the ConnectWise stack, namely ConnectWise Manage, along with a handful of other PSA and ITSM tools as well.
Awesome. So speaking of PitchIT, what kind of led AlertOps to participate in PitchIT?
So really, a member of our team stumbled upon it because we were already a part of the ConnectWise Invent program. We had an integration with ConnectWise Manage, and he had received information regarding PitchIT, so we decided to enter because we were really slowly expanding our footprint amongst service providers, and we felt that this would be a good learning opportunity to see how we could better address the ecosystem and the channel. And so that's really what kicked it all off, and we kind of just took it from there.
Awesome. So, PitchIT is full of new ideas and new concepts, new solutions. What made you guys identify the problems that AlertOps solves for, and how did you come about that opportunity?
So, as far as AlertOps and its kind of inception, we initially were a tool that predominantly catered to the enterprise space. And about 3 years ago, we organically saw a bit of an uptick in service providers that were signing up with our tool. So at that point, we dug a little bit deeper and we found that there was definitely some resonance between the use cases that for alerting that MSPs had from a day-to-day perspective with respect to the service desk and what we offered. So over the past couple of years, what we've done is we've spent time building out the integrations that are key to MSPs, as well as adding functionality that's kind of tailored uniquely to cater to service desk operations and RMM-based alerting.
Awesome. So, how did you guys then prepare for PitchIT?
I think that a lot of the preparation were really just the sessions, right? ConnectWise does a great job of organizing speakers and mentors that take you through various aspects of building a business within the MSP ecosystem. Everything from specifically how to tailor your technology to also dictating what OMLs you really need to cater to, right? The maturity levels of your target audience. And then on top of that, one of the things that was most useful to us was where in the channel do you actually get visibility? So we had enough service providers using the tool that we knew that it was useful. But after that, okay, well, how do we position it so that it's visible to a broader audience? And I think that learning what those channels were, as well as how to best engage with them, was one of the things that PitchIT really helped AlertOps with. So throughout those sessions, and then obviously various sessions with our coach, Jameson West, shout out to Jameson, definitely helped us putting together the final pitch altogether.
Awesome. So, what was kind of the biggest challenge that you guys had to overcome that PitchIT helped you with during this process?
So I think for me, one of the biggest challenges as the presenter was the fact that I'm a huge nerd, right? And I'm all about our product. I love our product, and like with a lot of nerds, it's difficult to separate yourself from the technical benefits and really the cool stuff that's built into it, as opposed to the value, right? Having more of a business oriented conversation around the value that we truly drive for managed service providers. So I think that being able to shift my mindset, take a step back and articulate it from a broader business sense was definitely something that PitchIT helped me inculcate.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty common issue, not just among vendors, but also among MSPs themselves, is articulating that business concept rather than the features and the technical solution, right? But
Exactly.
it's because most of us are nerds.
Yeah.
So, how has winning PitchIT helped AlertOps kind of evolve, and not just the product, but as a company as well?
I think that, like I mentioned, we learned a lot about how to position ourselves in the market, right? And throughout the process, we also learned quite a bit more about where the opportunity stands, not just from a standpoint of if we market in this particular way, we'll get more visibility, but also by listening to more service providers and listening to more vendors in the space, identifying what technological gaps exist that our products might be able to fill to kind of drive that incremental business value that we discussed, right? I'd say that that was definitely one, but the most important realistically are the relationships. We build quite a few relationships by going to the events, going to the training sessions, and I know that there was during our year quite a bit of push for us to be competitive on social media, etc. But the final three that we were with, we ended up becoming pretty good friends, and we actually put together a pre-day workshop highlighting the synergy between our tools. So I think that the relationships were probably the biggest benefit of joining PitchIT.
Yeah, and that's great to hear because one of the things I love about this industry is it's very non-competitive. It's very
Yeah.
collaborative, and a lot of people take that view towards this industry, and that's one of the things that I really, really just enjoy about working in this industry. So that's great. So I have to ask, what did it feel like when you guys found out that you won?
Oh, it was amazing. Considering that right after I got off stage, for a large part, I kind of just blacked out the last 4 minutes of my life. So at that point, I was like, "All right, yeah, well, that just happened. We'll see what how this goes." But no, realistically, though, I think that it was awesome to find out that we won. It was a testament to our CEO, our team, pretty much everyone behind the effort that is helping build a product and help the MSP ecosystem with their incident management and alerting. So this just helped build some credibility around that fact.
Awesome. So, based on your experience, what recommendations or suggestions or anything advice can you provide to the PitchIT contestants for 2024?
Honestly, pretty simply, just be as involved as possible, right? The sessions are great from an informational perspective, but talk as much as possible and to as many people as possible, because I think, once again, forging those relationships will not only help your business progress, but also help you learn where and how to position your emerging business.
Awesome. I think that's great advice for the people who are going to be coming up in this next PitchIT class. So, what is new with AlertOps? What's exciting? What's coming around the corner?
So there's a bunch of cool things that we're doing, right? Definitely one with respect to our workflow engine, right? We're creating quite a few enhancements, and in the near future, releasing out of the box kind of integrations with more third party tools, and that really helps us automate more downstream actions. Now, we already have the ability to do it and build out custom integrations, but we're templating a lot more of them as we see certain use cases become more and more prevalent in the MSP ecosystem. So that's definitely one thing that's coming down the line pretty soon here.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear how awesome AlertOps is doing and really appreciate you sharing your experience and your knowledge of the PitchIT program with the audience. For more information about PitchIT, go to atmsp.link/PitchIT.